Good evening. What happens when life hits you harder than you ever imagined? And then you have to rebuild yourself from the ground up. This November, we are sharing real stories from men who faced the age and found a way back. So if you believe that men's stories matter, do me a favor, hit subscribe, give this a thumbs up, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Today's guest is Sean from Donegal, a dad, a coach, and a man who had to rebuild himself. So join us and help us keep the conversation growing. Welcome back to the Witty Vitor podcast. This is part of our Movember Men's Health Stories. I'm your host, Vitor Vicente, and today we are diving into Sean's journey of recovery, resilience, and rebuilding after hitting rock bottom. As I mentioned, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to help us spread these conversations. And if you can support our Movember campaign, the link is in the description. So if you, Bob, will be more than welcome. Let's get into it. Sean, you are very welcome to my podcast.
Thank you very much for having me tonight, Peter. Really appreciate it.
Great. Looking forward to get to know your story in additional detail. So let's start from the start, if that makes sense. So I want to
Yep.
know if you can recall the exact point when you realized that you had to make some changes in your life. Was there any warning signs, and when did you finally decide to take action?
Yeah, it was a long time coming, Victor, and it got very, very close to being too late for me. I was, I was having trouble I was having marriage trouble. I had, um, some medical problems a couple of years ago where I lost my voice, and when I lost my voice, I seemed to have lost my confidence, lost my, what made me, my outgoingness, everything like that. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to see anybody because I couldn't speak properly to them, and because it was leaving me breathless when I did try and speak. And it, it's something that I just never, even though I got my voice back, the damage mentally was already done, where I just retreated inside myself and
Mm.
kind of stopped, basically went into survival mode, really. Um, and as I say, it did affect my marriage. We ended up going our separate ways, and really, when that happened, that was the real breaking point for me. And I attempted to take my own life. Um, I still remember the day. It was actually 24th of July, 2024. Um, I just Something happened in the house with my wife, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I got in the car, and I went to drive up to a bridge and jump off. It's funny. I have three kids, and the thing that actually stopped me from jumping was, it's so random. It was a LinkedIn email. You know, those job emails
Mm.
that you get when you join LinkedIn. They come at the weirdest hour of the night. It was around 1 o'clock at night, pitch dark. I wasn't even paying attention to the road. I was just driving, and I'd nearly at the bridge, and this email popped up, and my daughter's actually my screensaver on my phone, and it was that just snapped me back out of it, out of that trance, or out of that autopilot, whatever I was feeling at that point in time. And I just drove the car back to the house, and I was lucky I had therapy the next day, and spoke to my therapist about it. And it was at that point when we realized that, there was a serious problem. And I ended up voluntarily signing myself into a psych unit for a couple of days just to recover from it. So Yeah, it was a real that was an extreme turning point, and looking back at it now, there are times when it's scary to see how close that I came. And
Mm.
speaking to people, after this is part of my recovery, you only realize how much your actions would offend, or not offend, would affect those close to you or around you when you start talking about it after the fact. When you nearly do it, not when you obviously when you succeed, you can't tell anybody, but when you get that close, um, yeah, it's so hindsight. It was definitely 2020 for me when I realized, I suppose, how cared I was by my family, my friends, my kids. Obviously, they don't know when the time is right and they're older. Maybe I will tell them, um, or if it comes to it, that through hopefully my advocacy for mental health, that if you know that they learn about this, they learn that this what happened to their dad, and he came
Mm.
back from it, and he became a stronger person because of it.
Did you ever go back to that bridge?
I haven't yet, and
Mm.
I don't mean this to sound the wrong, but I will, but not for that reason. I'll go back to learn to really take in that moment and see how much how much I had potentially was going to give up, and how, I suppose, how silly that decision was at the time. But sometimes when you're in that kind of position, you're not thinking straight at all. And I think it's a big problem when people go down so far in their mental health, when you feel so hopeless, so detached
Mm.
from everybody else in your life, where you feel that you're so minute that nobody will miss you. And
Mm.
that's just simply not true, you know. And it's something when you're in that mindset you can't get out of it, but it is just a terrible trick that your head plays with you.
Yeah, the head can be quite tricky and sometimes your biggest enemy. You mentioned that your voice was damaged. You nearly lost your voice. So, in
Yeah.
some cases, and it's not that are, let's say, a better position than others. It's always a place of suffering. So, not like overestimating or underestimating
Mhm.
you or the others, but there are people who don't have clear signs. So, let's say their suffering is silent. And in your case, because you couldn't speak properly, I'm sure someone noticed. Did some people approach you and ask you if something was wrong?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was like I suppose, with my work and everything, they were aware. I went to occupational health, and they were helping me through work. And I did have to take a long time to recover. And when I went back to work,
Mm.
I wouldn't be allowed. I suppose I wasn't. My meetings were reduced. I used kind of when we were meeting through MS Teams or WebEx. It was me mostly using chat function more than speech. And
Mm.
in general, work were very good. And I mean, the aftercare that I got while I was recovering, through voice therapy and physiotherapy was great, and it really helped me get my voice. Got my voice back,
Yeah.
um, which was great. I'm not the singer I used to be, but I still have a pretty good voice.
Mm. You do. I can clearly see that. And I remember back in university that I had this professor who would raise this situation, and the situation was about if you have to lose one of your senses, which one uh, don't would you not accept to lose? So you could lose your vision, you could lose your hearing, you could lose your taste, you could lose your capacity to talk. And I always hold to the audio related senses, the hearing and the speaking. Like, of course, it would be devastating not to be able to see what is in front of my eyes, but the fact that I would be in complete darkness and not be able to speak my mind, I think that's the scariest thing I could ever imagine. So I would like to understand, how did you handle not being able to put in words what was in your head back then?
It was very tough. For the first while, I just didn't. I would write with a pad and a notepad. I would bring it with me, and then when I started to talk, it would come out in a very low growl.
Mm.
So it impacted the kids as well because that's not daddy's voice. They were very young at the time. Um, it wasn't daddy's voice that they heard. It was a growl. Even my dog is funny. The family dog. When I would try to call him over, he'd wet himself because he thought I was angry. You know, and it's even stuff like that gets to you. I couldn't read a story to my kids at night, and before I lost my voice, that was part of our nighttime routine. We'd go up and we'd read. We'd all sit on the bed together and we'd read stories. So it was stuff like that. That kind of a loss more than work was great because they give me a work around, but it was the fact that I couldn't go out and play football with my kids. I couldn't mow the lawn. I couldn't even call the dog over without him getting scared. So
Mm.
that kind of thing it makes yourself isolate in your head because you think, God, these people that I love, or this animal that I love is afraid of me.
Yeah.
And it's like, what must I be? What kind of a man or what kind of a monster must I be that my kids and my dog are afraid of me? And I know that's completely not true. It was something medically that was wrong with me, but that's not what your head tells you. Your head tells you, oh, Jesus, they're scared of you. What are you at? What have you done to make them scared of you?
Yeah.
And then it
And then,
spirals.
yeah, no, I just want to add here that, and then the other thing that the voice is I think the voice is a tool. No, it's much more than people think. It's something that we use to engage with others, to express our feelings, to externalize our emotions, and you are not able to. So a lot would have stayed in your head because you couldn't externalize the things you are going through.
Exactly. That's exactly it. You were found that because it was taking so long to write down what you wanted to write,
Mm.
as you said, Victor, more stuff just stayed in your head, and it's like it's not worth it's not worth the trouble trying to write it down. It's not worth the trouble trying to text it on your phone. It's not worth. And even over time in meetings, the meetings would be going so fast that by the time you had typed out the point that you wanted to make, someone else had made it
Yes.
already. So you had that feeling of, you know, I don't matter. Oh, what's the point in saying that? It's going to take too long to say. So in that, then you start, you know, going into yourself, retreating inside where you're, the loudest thing in your head is your own voice.
Mm.
Regardless of where you are, the loudest thing in your head is your own voice. You could be at an airport, you could be on a plane, you could be on a building site, but still the loudest thing in your head is your own voice. And it's something I had to, supposed to learn to fight the hard way because it got so loud and it got so strong and it got so negative during that
Mm.
time.
I think many people struggle with self-talk, and I will be open about it.
Mm,
I've been one of them for quite some time. I can tell very horrible stories to myself, and if I'm not careful, I'll be engaged in a very dangerous way. So you went through all that. Perhaps you can give some advice to individuals like myself who struggle with self-talk, just not to take that voice that seriously and do not engage. Is that a trick to stay away from the message you are being sent by
Um,
your own voice?
I, I suppose as I was recovering, at the end of last year, I did, because of my marriage breakdown, I had to move back to Sligo. So I would travel from Sligo to the top of Donegal for work every morning, every evening. And I found the car was brilliant
Mm.
because I I read this book by a guy called Pádraig Moran, and I think it's called Think Like a Man, where he mentioned that you have to challenge the negative thoughts. You have to challenge them all the time, to try and get yourself back in a positive mindset. And I probably took it one step further, where I actually, in the car, I would verbalize it out loud. So anyone that saw me in traffic on the way to work or on the way back from work in those months would think, Jesus, this guy's a lunatic. He's shouting and roaring at himself in the car. But I found it to be actually really good, because um, when you talk outside, when you challenge your inner voice with your outer voice, you can actually hear it, and it goes in. There's no point in, anyone with mental health problems will say, you'll be lying there awake in the middle of the night, and all these thoughts will be just bombarding you over and over again, and you feel like it's so loud that you can't sleep. You obviously can't sleep because you're awake in the middle of the night, but you can't challenge them. And I found, sitting in the car, driving in the car, when these thoughts would come into your head, I would challenge them out loud. I would say, no, that's not true. That's bullshit. You know,
Mm.
I am useful. I'm worth, I'm a dad. I'm a good dad. You know, these, these kids worship me. These kids, I matter to these kids, and you're going to be there. You're not going to give up. You're going to keep on fighting. You're not going to throw in the towel. You're not going to be that guy who leaves his family behind, who leaves his parents, his siblings, his kids, his friends, his co-workers, with all these questions that are never going to be answered. So it was literally me challenging myself on a daily basis, whether it was in the mirror when I woke up in the morning, or in the car. I would outwardly challenge myself. Literally, I would
Yeah.
argue with myself.
Mm.
And the more I argued, the more the voices inside my head telling me I wasn't good enough, they started diminishing. You know,
Mm.
every time the inner voice would say, "Oh, you're not good enough," well, I would challenge it and I'd say, "Well, actually, I'm good enough. I've done this. I've got three wonderful kids. I've got a job that I like, that I'm doing well in. I'm driving my own car. It's paid for. You know, I've got all these things going for me. You're a good person. People like you. You've got friends." Because the mind plays tricks on you and say, "Oh God, if you were to jump off, if you were to jump off that bridge, sure, who'd miss you?" You know,
Mm.
and that's not true. It's simply, it's simply your mind telling you. It's not anyone else telling you. Be different if people were stopping you in the street and telling you were useless, you were no good. You know,
Mm.
you're not worth tuppence. But it's only in here.
Yes.
Everything
Yeah.
else around continues on as normal, whereas inside the heads, it's nearly so probably like a war going on inside your head. You're constantly battling inside, and then by outwardly challenging my thoughts, you could you could hear it. It was indisputable because it came out of your mouth. It was out in the air, and it came out of your mouth and went into your ears. So that for me was a real help.
Yeah. I think there is an exercise of disengagement. So you listen to that voice and you don't recognize that voice as yours. It's like an
Mm.
external agent or entity that is talking to you and not telling the right thing. So you don't subscribe or endorse what this being is telling you. And you just take it like some bad person giving you bad advice and you are not taking it serious. And then I think that's the issue. When people are not able to detach from their own voices, then they take for granted that everything that is being said, it's right, because who else than ourselves would know what is best for us? That's something that we think is true, but it's not always true, because sometimes, like I often, let's say, see some of my friends going through difficult situations and vice versa. They see me in a tricky context, and it's much easier if I need to tell them, I think you should pursue that route. You better avoid that avenue. So what I do is, when something is not straightforward, let's say um, in my in my in my own circumstances, what I do, I try to see it as it's happening with one of my best friends, someone I really care, someone that I desire the best. So I try to treat it. It's not happening with me. And what would I prescribe if it will happen with that mate? And usually that helps because the emotions, as much as I care for him, are very different than when I care for myself because I can distance myself from what is happening, and then I have this window, that allows me to see things differently with more, with more tranquility.
Yeah, that's it. I think we're never as cruel to anyone else in our lives than we are
Yes,
cruel to ourselves, and
big
that's
time. Yeah.
definitely yeah.
I wonder why is that? Why we like to punish ourselves this much? It's like maybe because it's easy. Because like to punish someone, we need to find the individual in the right spot. Ideally, he needs to be fragile. That it won't fire back. Because
Mm.
targeting us, it's simple, and sometimes we have all this aggressiveness. We don't know what to do with that, and why not use ourselves as the victim?
That's it. I think if we look at kids, you know, when we look at young kids, sometimes they will say the most horrible things to each other,
Yeah.
and then as adults, as parents, will say, "Oh, don't say it to that. You'll hurt their feelings." So, and it's a double-edged sword because at the same time we want them to be, we want to raise them properly and say you're going to be a good, upstanding person. You're going to be a nice person. But at the same time, when they don't get to say it out loud, or when we don't get to say it out loud, it has to go somewhere. That frustration has to go somewhere. So it's a double-edged sword, and it's trying to find the best way that we can let out our emotions, let out our anger without harming others. And it's something, that's, I suppose, since my recovery, I've been working a lot with my own kids, saying, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to be angry. And you can talk about how angry you are. Tell me how angry you are, but
Mhm.
don't take it out on other people. You have the right to feel what
Yes.
you feel, but you can't make other people feel the way you're feeling because that doesn't help them. But you have the right to talk about how you're feeling and get those emotions out of you. And you know, and I say I'll always be here to listen. Tell me you're feeling angry. Tell me, if you don't know why, that's okay as well. Because sometimes we just feel angry, something we heard, something we read, or it just could be, the old adage, you get out of the bed the wrong way in the morning, and it's okay. And that's what I wanted, I suppose, having come from my situation, that's what I want my kids to know, that it's okay to feel emotions. It's okay to have all this built up in you, especially as they come towards puberty, which is, where the hormones just play havoc. My daughter's 11 last week. My twin boys are 9. That's all ahead of me, but I want to try and, I suppose, equip them as best possible to be able to navigate it, to be able to talk about what they're feeling, about what they're going through, and talk to me because you know I've felt all these emotions. I've felt useless. I felt not good enough, and it nearly killed me. But I brought myself back. I've got the help. I got the treatment. I still attend grow meetings
Mhm.
every Tuesday, which is, to me, is the best thing that anyone who's suffering with mental health can do. Have you
Yeah,
heard of them
I
before?
heard one. Yeah, I heard once Jordan Peterson saying that he believes that suicide is it's like a crime to the family members because they will feel targeted like they were part of the like your blood is going to be their blood because
Mm,
they're going to feel targeted like in the directive. So it's not only that you like the suicidal take his life away, but he's also damaging others for the rest of their lives, and there's a lot of responsibility on that. Did it ever play some role when you decide not to go ahead?
not at the time, but speaking to my father and my mother afterwards, they made me realize what the implications of what I could have done were.
Mm.
I think they were distraught. I think that things had got so bad, and they could see me going down, but I wouldn't accept the help. I wouldn't come to the table. They could see that I wasn't the person that I was. I wasn't the person that I am now. And they didn't know how to approach it, because obviously there was another person involved, a spouse involved, which was, tricky. But yeah, afterwards they said, we just we couldn't reach you at the time, and we didn't know how bad it actually was.
Mm.
Um, and you know, they also mentioned that this would have been the end of us too. We would have like both my mum and dad said to me, we would have never recovered from this. We're both in our 70s. This would have finished us both as well. So not only would my actions have ended my life, it would have potentially, really caused deterioration in my own parents, which was a gut punch. But a really, I suppose, educational gut punch, if you will. Because it taught me how much I had to lose, how much how much I meant to other people. My brother would be very, not conservative, but he'd be very reserved in his
Mm.
thoughts. You know, he would only speak when he really needed to speak. Very kind of Clint Eastwood-esque, if you will.
Yeah.
I still remember, coming out of the unit, and I remember the first time he'd seen me. He's like, "What were you thinking? Do you realize what you would have done to us?" And he just gave me such a big hug. Um, and he was very emotional, which was not like him at all.
Mm.
So it was, and my sister-in-law, who's just the most wonderful person. She actually works in the psychiatric home as well. She was brilliant as well, because she helped me navigate, because I was still in such survival mode, just having come out. She helped my parents understand, you know, she helped my brother understand, my sister, and that understand what I was potentially going through, and would help me understand as well what I was going through, which was huge, which was a huge benefit to me.
Yeah.
But
Uh, Sorry,
sorry,
go on.
but
No,
no,
I just want to say this. Some
yeah,
people believe that if, let's say, suicidals will have a way back, maybe 80-90% of them would regret. And it wouldn't be about themselves, it would be about the damage they provoked to family, friends, relatives. But unfortunately, it's a one-way road. It's not something that we can give it a try and see how it works. And if it's not exactly what you were looking for, you just press the button and you are back. So it's a decision that you cannot just take it and then think about it.
yeah, it's a one-way trip. It's non-refundable, unfortunately, and you know, I don't, I you would wonder in the afterlife if they're able to see the damage that gets left behind, the carnage, the lives that are destroyed as a byproduct. But in saying that as well, Victor, some people feel that there's no other way out, and that's a tragedy in itself. There's I think we've got so much to do with regard to mental health. I think we've got so much work left to do that somehow needs to be a light shined on. For example, I was at a meeting last Monday night, this night last week. Um, I suppose we found out through my grow meetings that there was a kind of a feedback meeting regarding mental health in Donegal. So I attended that and kind of put it to the lady who was running the meeting. We have 400 to 500 deaths each year on our roads, and we have a road safety authority put in place with education, with awareness, all these other things in an effort to bring down road deaths. Where's the mental health version of that? We're into four figures each year, people who take their own lives. And what if there was, some kind of awareness, some kind of simple training through adverts on the TV, through TikTok? There's so many outlets out there where you could do simple 1 or 2 minutes sound bites where people could get information about how to talk to a loved one if they're feeling that way, or about how to spot the signs, if they're even available to spot. There's I think Norwich City Football Club last year did the most. I'm not even sure how to describe it, but the most amazing ad regarding mental health and suicide. If you or any of your viewers have a chance to look it up on YouTube, it's really kind of hard hitting, really poignant, and it definitely shines a huge light on how sometimes it can get overlooked. So if I could give you one bit of advice, is when you finish the podcast, have a Google of the Suicide Norwich City advertisement, and it's so good.
Yeah, for sure, check it out, and perhaps I can even advertise it in my platforms or show it next time. But there are not, just for the viewers, there's a few Movember sessions in the pipeline. This is the second. There'll be 3 more. Next will be next week, actually, in a week time on the 17th. And we have a fourth taking place on Sunday, 23rd, and then at the very end of the month on 30 November. But this is not just a November. There's a conversation that needs to be happening from day 1 till the 31st of December. We shouldn't stop because November it's over. Now, there's a conversation that needs to be present, recurrent, and it needs to take place whenever it's necessary. And we need to be aware that it can be needed all the time. And there's no one immune. There's no one above mental health problems. It doesn't matter where you live, what sort of weather is happening at your window, how much crypto you have. It's not about that. Like you see a lot of, that's one thing I want to discuss with you. So see a lot of millionaires, even like actors in Hollywood, or famous musicians, business owners who are just crashing. And one day they decide this is it. And this really confirms it's not about your status, your success. It's way beyond that.
Yeah, you can have all the money in the world and you can still be just deeply unhappy.
Yeah.
It's not about material. It's about the intangible things. It's about how you feel in your head, and it's about the what you're telling yourself. It's about that inner voice. There's an old Indian saying about the 2 wolves, and it's one good wolf, one bad one, and they're at war all the time inside your head. And this young Indian, he went to his chief and he said, "This is happening all the time. I've got the bad wolf and the good wolf fighting all the time in my head. How, who wins?" And the chief said to him, he said, "Whoever wins is the one you feed the most. So if you're feeding the bad wolf, the bad wolf takes over. You feed the good wolf, the good wolf takes over." So
yeah, that's a very beautiful way to describe what's going on in our heads. Now, we men just trying to think about ourselves, despite all the society pressures and how things are set up. It all starts on us, as much as ads are available, as much as society is prepared to help us. Sometimes we need to take the initiative, but we tend to stay quiet even when we are hurt. Do you think it's about pride, fear, or perhaps a strength of habit?
I think it's think it's societal. It's something that's not not so much genetic, but it's a learned trait that for men you know, you shut up and get on with it, bottle it up and move on. We don't talk about our feelings, we don't talk about things like that. And it's a learned condition, and it's something that we probably need to break. We need to try and I'm not, you know, talking about going all the way to the other side where we're talking about our feelings and everything the whole time, but it is something that we need to get more comfortable with, talking about how we feel, about how stuff is affecting us. Um, and that's why I suppose one of the greatest tools that helped in my recovery was a charity called Grow, and I attend their meetings every Tuesday night. Um, it's like a group session. It's Grow was started by an Irishman, and I think it was Australia in the '60s, and it's a 12-step program which is based around the 12 steps of AA, but they've modified it to talk about mental health, and it's been invaluable to me. It's just where you can go each week and talk about stuff that's bothering you, and everyone around the table has experienced the same thing, so it's where people can understand you because they've been through it. It's all about lived experience, so it's all about peer support and peer advice, which is to me has been invaluable, because I'll be honest, the aftercare in the mental health services has a long, long way to go before it's even adequate. I think there was just pills thrown at me, and it's like, I'm seeing a couple of months. So in a lot of cases, and in most cases, you have to be prepared to do the hard work. You know, me not jumping off the bridge was probably the easiest part. It got much harder after that because I had to face what I'd become. I had to accept what I'd become, accept the help, and start opening up about what was really going on inside me. And that was scary. That was very scary because you had to open yourself out to everything that you're feeling, re-experience everything that you're going through.
Mm.
It's like opening an old wound. Or so that was probably scary. The first couple of months after the suicide attempt were the hardest. But once you do start opening up, once you start accepting the help, once you know started talking about it on a regular basis. So I had attended therapy regularly as well with a counselor, and I also had my grow meetings every week, and they were just invaluable. I literally I couldn't put a price on how much grow has helped me, and I couldn't fully describe how it's helped me. And anyone at the group, we talk about it regularly at the group because we do. Um, would say sometimes if we get a new member in the group, you have to talk about how grow has helped you, and trying to describe that is the hardest thing in the world. But it's trying to describe the process of breathing.
Yeah.
It works, but you're not sure how. So yeah, that was, I would advise anyone who's feeling, if it's anxiety, if it's depression, you know, anything like that, any mental health, to look up grow.ie and find the support in there, because they have been so very valuable to me, and still are, to be honest.
Yeah, like we tend to think that we can solve our problems on our own, and we can some of them, but not all. Yeah,
No.
none of us is Superman. We can have Superman moments. Like every single of us had at least one Superman moment in their lives. Maybe they don't realize, but we all had, or if we didn't have, they're gonna happen. But none of us is Superman from the moment we were born until the moment we are gone. That doesn't exist. Not even in movies. They all struggle. They
Mm.
all ask for help. They all look for support and assistance, and there's no embarrassment with that because we are not enough. That's how it is, right? That's how human beings are built. As much as we are skilled and talented and well connected, there will be a time that we don't know what to do with situation. We need to ask for advice. We need to uh, bring someone in because we don't know what is next step, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about it because we don't need to know it all. Otherwise, would be too easy. And if there's one thing that life it is, it's not easy. So if someone wants to join that group you just mentioned, let's
Yeah,
just advertise. What's the best way for a new member to be part of the group?
they have a website, grow.ie, and if you go onto that website, you'll be able to find, they call it the area coordinator. So depending on
Mhm.
what part of the country you're in, you can contact the area coordinator for that area, and they'll be able to put you in touch with your nearest meeting. Or they do meetings online as well. They do meetings via Teams, but I think for me, the in-person sessions are much better.
Of course, like you cannot replace that. Like what to do here, Sean, it's great, but it's an addition. That's how I
Mm.
see it. Like I love to talk people on video call because I mean, we are in the same country, but we are on
Exactly.
the,
Yeah. Yeah.
you are on the west coast, I'm on the east coast. We cannot just make it happen from one day to another.
No.
So I'm deeply thankful for the technology. But if we could do this in person, I wouldn't think
Oh
twice
yeah.
because we could all benefit in a way that technology cannot provide.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Like I'll give you an example, Vitor. A lot of your listeners and everything will be watching us speak right now, but they may also be on their phones. They may also have, their kids will be coming in and out, or they'll have something on they might have something down low on the TV. It might be a football match on or something like that. So you'll always have the distractions, and I think our case is different because we're doing an interview where it's just me and you. Whereas if there's 6 or 7 people waiting to talk, everybody's waiting their turn. And then there's I suppose, the distractions that can, you know, mess with you, and you lose part of the meeting then. So the in-person ones I prefer.
Yeah, 100%. We have viewers here praising what we are doing. So thank you, Killian. Killian usually joins my Thursday sessions on the League of Ireland. Killian, League of Ireland is coming to an end, as we know. The last game was yesterday. I don't want to talk about last game because then I'll be depressed. I'm a Cork fan, so let's not get into that. But Killian, Thursday, if you want to join us, Killian, we have a session at 6 p.m. Not to clash with the Ireland game in the Aviva. We will start at 6 and we'll discuss the whole League of Ireland, including that dreadful game that took place in the Aviva yesterday, Kieran. So make sure to be there. And if you have any question to myself or Sean on the mental health side of the house, just drop in the comments box. I want to ask about social media. Like you mentioned, the distractions.
Mm.
We all need this digital detox from time to time, but on the other end, we want to be updated to what's going on the road because, again, there's this social embarrassment of sitting in a pub or in a cafe and friends are talking about a topic that we are not aware of and we want to participate. And this, we are more or less the same age. We remember the times that we heard the news at 7 or 8 in the evening, and that was it. Now we are
Uh,
bombarded with what's happening on the road 24/7. If you want to be on, we can be on the whole time. So how do you handle this massive information that we receive through the mobile phone?
I'm I've gotten very picky about what I join, what I watch, um, because they're in the midst of all these. Like my kids are into brain rots and all stuff.
Hmm.
Stuff that's on YouTube or the stuff. But there's some brilliant stuff there as well. So like I will listen to every morning. I have this positive affirmation. It's about 13 minutes long that I listen to on YouTube. from a YouTube user called Lavender, and I listen to that every morning when I go into work. I pop it on the I'll pop it on the laptop while I'm setting up and answering emails from the day before. Um, I I look at a lot of kind of mindfulness podcasts, a lot of even TikTok, Instagram. There's a lot of good affirmations in there. Once you wade through all the other, once you wade through all the other stuff, I want, you know, because there's so many topics you can go down a rabbit hole. But for me, I focus on what I want to see, and I just put everything else aside. I don't. It doesn't bother me where such and such is eaten, or where you know who went out who went out to what bar, or what movie opening, or what. For me, it's football, GA, mindfulness, gardening,
Mm.
um, stuff like that, and they're what I focus on.
Let's jump into sports now that you mentioned football and GAA. So you do some work with the lads in the GAA group in Donegal. Uh, what do you believe is the role of sports when it comes to community creation, interrelationship skills? Like, what sports can bring into one's development other than the physical growth?
I think sport is, regardless of what sport it is, as long as you're doing something. Number one, it keeps you active. But like I always tell my kids, if you're part of a sports team, you'll always have people, good people around you, people of the same similar mindset. You know, if you're going to training, you're not running around the streets. If you've got a game on Sunday, you're not, you know, 9 times out of 10, you're not heavy drinking on the Saturday night. So it gives you kind of a good balance in life, I think, and it puts you down the right road if you're with a good group of lads. And I'm very lucky that my sons have that. And when they go to secondary school where we are, they'll know a lot of the kids that they're going to be in school with already through playing in the soccer team or the Gaelic team. So I think it sets them up better, socially, competitively, because you've got to get that competitive edge, and you've got to, there's got to be a little bit of rough and tumble to, to prepares you for winning, prepares you for losing, because, in life you don't always win. In fact, you probably lose a lot more than you win. And sport is a great way of teaching people how to lose grace. Like my boys will come off the pitch and after losing a game, and they'll be all down, and I'll tell them, you know what, you win the next game and you won't remember this. And you know what, it'll feel twice as good because you lost this game. You win the next game, you'll feel twice as good. You'll feel, you know, up there. So it's all about learning from loss and appreciating victory, because victory's not going to last forever. So you have to appreciate it while you have it, and then learn from every loss.
Yeah. And you can also learn that you are not invincible, because
Absolutely.
as
Yeah.
as much of let's say Man City back in the days, you 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 were, there'll be the odd game that you're going to be beaten by Brentford or Leicester or Spurs. That they will happen, and
Yeah.
sometimes when you don't expect, because you underestimate your circumstances. You think you can just make it by putting little effort, and all of a sudden the referee is saying it's the end of the game, and you lose it because you didn't pay attention. You took it for granted. And sports, as you said, will tell you that life is not easy. You might make it more than you think if you put
Mm.
the passion, if you are action orientated, if you have team spirit, which is another thing that I think sports are great at building it, because in sports you learn about looking after one another. You realize that your mate's benefit, it's yours, and vice versa. Let's say if he scores a goal, is nearly as good as I score a goal. Of course, you
That's
want to
it.
also be part of the score, but end of the day, what you want is to win. And maybe you are not that visible on the score, but your contribution to the score is there. It does, and you can also learn about how to manage your ego, because you realize that you are not always on the spotlight. Uh, on the moments you are important, you can be vital and be invisible. That happens all the time. I was actually at talking about football. I was at the FA Cup final yesterday, and I happened to be seated next to former Cork City manager. He was the manager. I can't remember now his name. He was the manager in 2019. Anyway, I didn't know that.
Mickey
So and he
Devine,
was.
was it?
I give me a second. I think it was his surname is Fan. I should have this in my head. Neil Fan.
Oh, yeah, he played with Cork City as well. Yeah.
And I didn't know, because I started to pay attention to the League of Ireland. It was a very ironic situation. I started to pay attention to the League of Ireland maybe in 2022, I think, or 2021. I can't remember. So I'm very recent. And I sat next to this man, and we started to chat. And I was talking to him like he was another lad, and he's another lad, end of the day. But he is known if you are into Irish football. And I realized after like 10, 20 minutes that his comments weren't just average comments. He was using words, and he was approaching the game with science and understanding of the game. Like I could see that he spent some time behind the scenes. Like I'm not an expert, but I've been doing this podcast for nearly 2 years, so now I know certain things that I didn't. So if someone talks to me about podcasting and just started, I know they just started, and that's fine. But I could see that he knew the game from inside out. So when I realized that he was an expert, I wanted to take advantage. I wanted to learn. I wanted to absorb his knowledge. I say, what an opportunity! This city is not just to watch the game. The game is not going my way. So I'm trying to get some valuable information from this gentleman. And one of the things I asked Neil was, what's the most important part of the squad? Is it the attack, the midfield, the defense, or the keeper? And most of us, average Joes, we think it's the attack, because the attack is, in theory, the people who put the ball on the back of the net. But he said, no, wrong. It's the midfield. It's the midfield who will decide what's going to happen in the game, because the midfield will bring the ball from the back to the front, and the midfield would recover the ball when the ball is in the opponent's possession. So the midfield is crucial. It's like a hole in the middle. If there's a hole in the middle, it will never work. As skilled as a striker is, as solid as the defense is, if the midfield is not there, there is a gap, and the team is just in pieces.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I mean, even you look at Liverpool at the moment. With Virgil van Dijk has lost his yard or two of pace. He can't come out and cover that number 6 role anymore. And you've got Gravenberch and McAllister ahead of him. Both are more number 8s. They're more naturally attacking players. So you can see that, as you mentioned, that hole is there in defensive midfield for Liverpool at the moment. And I think a lot of teams are exploiting that, and they're getting good. I suppose the proof is in the pudding. You look at the results that Liverpool are or are not getting at the moment. So
yeah, they're not in a good space, not a good space at all, I think. And there is also, I think, I mean, it's not unrelated. We're not going to talk about football now, it's just for the lads out there. That's Thursdays, but this is just an analogy. I think Liverpool is lacking a strong command from the bench, and Klopp was great at that. Even when the team was struggling, they knew that Klopp was there, and they would be behind the team, and they would listen to him on the good and bad moments. I'm not sure if the current manager is able to fulfill that role all the time, because it's very easy, just going back to people's lives, it's very easy to keep it up when things are going in the right direction, no? Like there's not much effort to put, because all you do is just keeping an eye, and that's it. But if you need to implement strategies, if you need to be tactical about what's going on, if you need to make sure that the way that things are going is going to stop, and it's going to stop not in a week, not in a month. It needs to stop, let's say, in the next 10, 20 minutes,
10 minutes.
or not later than an hour. You need to be effective and make sure that your approach, it won't be your approach going forward. Then you need to, and it's also painful to realize that your own sort of actions, it's not working, because, as I was saying before, it's easy to point fingers if you don't point fingers at yourself, because then it's a huge suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be man enough to admit you're wrong, and then change what's wrong, admit your mistakes, and rectify them.
What do you think? What do you think that being a man means in this current day and age? It's about strength. It's about courage. It's leadership. How do you describe being a man, say, in a couple of sentences?
I think in today's world, it's lonely
Mm.
to be a man. I think, there's a lot of double standards when it comes to being a man. There's a lot of hoops that a man has to jump through. There's a lot expected of us, when sometimes you don't get very much or anything in return. So you're loved for what you can do, as opposed for who you are. And that's probably something I had to learn the hard way. You're loved for what you provide, for what you give out, as opposed to who you are. And when you stop being able to provide those things, then you hear about it. You're persecuted for it. You're told you're no good. You know there's a value put on you, on what you can provide. Um, you know, it's not easy, and
Yeah, and I think, yeah, go on, go on.
and as I say, the support isn't there for when you do open up.
Mm.
The support is not there in a lot of cases. It wasn't there for me, I know, definitely, until you know until I reached rock bottom, and I ended up in, let's say, going into the hospital and going to therapy and that. So it was very, very much a case where I was valuable as long as I was productive. I was valuable as long as I was providing, and when I stopped being able to do that, when I stopped, my value ceased.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on men. Like, we need to be persistently delivering it. We are not allowed to take a rest. It's not
Mm.
like that. And even if, let's say, if you are on holidays and things go wrong, they expect you to be at the front and finding a solution. You cannot just sit and watch. Let's put it like that. Like,
Mm.
this is not like the gender battle, but women can afford things that we cannot. Let's say, if there's something to be fixed, the first person that they can think of is us. Okay, I know they also have their own struggles. I understand it's not always
Yeah.
easy to be a woman. I'm not here
Yeah.
saying that we are victims, but we all know that if something is wrong, at least the man and the woman, will approach it. It's never the case that just a woman go and check it out by herself. We sometimes do it, and we
Mm.
expect to go back to the family and saying everything is in its place. We can carry on with the party. We
Yeah.
cannot just stay in bed and sleep. It doesn't work like that. There is an additional responsibility that comes with being a man, and we are not always ready to respond, because we are human beings, and like we cannot be good at everything, and I don't think that's I don't think that's fair, because some of us are more tailored to certain tasks, and they struggle to handle situations that are not necessarily their type. But because we are a man, that comes with a duty, and the duty is to make sure that things are in place that everyone can enjoy. And sometimes, yeah, you manage to fix the problem, but you are so exhausted that you are not even able to avail of the situation you just fixed. So you kind of act like in an altruistic way for the others, which is good, because there is a positive feeling about providing to others. But often we forget that the man solved it, and now he's just trying to get a rest, because he spent, I don't know, 20 hours trying to find the solution and putting the resolution in place.
I think, I suppose, bringing it back to our chat about football, I think men, if you were to define men as a football position, it'd be the goalkeeper, where you're judged on your failures as opposed to, their victories. I mean, your any of your results. If the team wins 1-0, oh, that's brilliant. If the team if your team loses, it's like, oh, the keeper let one in. No, the keeper didn't let one in. It had to go. The forwards, didn't do the high press. Midfield didn't do its job and shut it down.
Yes.
Defenders didn't do their job by blocking it. But if something now, goalkeepers aren't above dropping a massive mistake. You had Onana with United last year. Man couldn't catch a cold. But
Yeah.
you can have a great game and let one in, but you're only judged on the one that you let in. I'm an Everton supporter, and I looked at Jordan Pickford in the last couple of years. That man single-handedly kept Everton in the Premier League pretty much, but by himself in some games, because he was getting no support. And yet the media were still hounding him. They were still saying, "Oh, Aaron Ramsdale, how is he not in England's number one?" Nick Pope, he's there with Newcastle now. How is he's definitely going to be England's number one.
Yes.
And yet somehow, again, it took, those who knew saw the real value in Jordan Pickford, and he's pretty much the undisputed England number one. And I can't see him not continuing that way. So I think men get judged on their failures, and that's nothing against women. I have nothing against women at all. But it's just a society. It's the way of society. It's the way I think it's always been, and the support. And we as men have to take some of the blame as well, because we don't support each other.
Yes.
There's the old adage: if a woman's experienced something, she has trouble, she'll ring up the girls. They'll all sit down and they'll hash it out. They'll discuss it, and a solution will appear or won't appear. But they'll her colleagues or friends will give her some advice. Men don't do that. We tend to just push it down deep inside. So it's definitely not a case of blaming women for our mental health problems. It's something we've got to learn.
Yeah, and fix it.
And
Okay,
fix
for a
it.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a
But-
change. Yeah.
Yeah, but talking more openly will help, because the one thing a man doesn't get is a compliment. Like I seen a thing on, I think it was Facebook or something like that. The only time a man ever gets flowers is at his funeral.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Never
Never thought of that. Yeah.
And it's not about I don't want my girlfriend to land up here tomorrow morning with a big bouquet of roses or anything. But you know what? A compliment means more to a man than anything. Someone telling you that they're proud of you. Oh, you fixed that. That's brilliant. Well done. I think to a man, a compliment is is just something else. And sometimes you can see it.
It's a gift from heaven, no?
Yeah.
Because it happens like once in a lifetime. Like women keep giving compliments to each other, not always,
Mm,
not always honest. No? Most of these compliments,
yeah.
it's very rare that a man will say, "Well done," or "I'm very proud of what you are doing."
Mm,
We just say, "Yeah, keep it up." That's it.
yeah.
Keep it up. You know, well
Yeah.
done. Keep it up. That's it. You know, keep it that way. You are doing great. Keep it that way. Don't ever say, "Oh, I realized that you were giving a lecture that way." So that's fantastic because that tells that you are being recognized, and I hope you can do
Yeah.
others, say in I don't know in England or in the continent. But there's not much of that. Like I met this friend on Saturday here in Bray, and I haven't seen this lad for I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, 6 months, can't remember. And we started to talk, and we were talking about already for an hour, and we basically talk about things because that's what men do, no?
Yeah.
So it's more about your profession, how are things in society. So we talk about football as well, and all of a sudden, and I was shocked. He asked me with these words, "And how are things on the personal front?" And I was thinking, this is a Movember thing.
Yeah.
A man asking another one, how are things on personal front? How are things at home? How are things with your girlfriend? How do you feel about moving to Bray with her? Is everything all right? By having a new life, with a partner. Men
Mm,
don't ask those things because we are more interested in external, situations. Like let's try to go through the last games in the Premier League. Let's discuss the Irish presidential elections. Let's talk about the war in the Middle East. Let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about the pine price. But talking about how you relate to those things, we don't.
oh,
It's always like,
I bet it took you by surprise when he said that, didn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
very much. And remember, like on the beginning when we moved to Ireland, I tend to bring my girlfriend to my gatherings with my friends because she was a bit isolated, and my
Mm,
friends are for most part they are men. They are like I don't know, maybe 95% they are men, and she was shocked to hear that we only talk about things that, using her own words, we cannot change, like politics, football, inflation, because it's not up to us. I mean, we can try to go on YouTube channels and make some comments, but it's not
mm,
that the things are going to change in the White House or or all of a sudden Manchester United is doing well. That's
yeah.
we are very far from that, especially with Manchester United. Not that I'm a United fan. Don't worry, I'm a Spurs fan.
Oh,
Um,
you'll be having my girlfriend's a Spurs fan and her two sons
ah,
are Spurs fans as well.
she's
So
all good people, all good people. But she was shocked that we are talking about things that they are not necessarily impacting us. They
mm,
are, but we cannot change them. Let's say from one day to another. Why don't we talk about things that are happening in our backyard? But we
mm,
don't. Very, very, very rare. And women is the opposite because I have a sister. That's why I have some insights about women's conversations. I'll be very happy to have these sort of chats with women because I have a sister. She's 7 years older than me, and I grew up going out with her when I was still like I don't know 14. Like the first times I was out for a drink, I went out with her, and they were only females. So I got to
mm,
know the female world, and it's all about their own experiences,
yeah.
what they went through. Let's say they meet on a Friday, they're gonna say, "I had this chat with this chap at the office, and I met that guy on the bus." It's all about themselves, and then there is little room for what's going on the road, but very, 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 very quick, quick chat.
Yeah. And they all work together as a group and
Yes.
they solve their problems. And I think again, it's something you said that we don't do. And I think that's why probably, a lot of, a lot more men suffer from mental health issues because we don't talk like that enough. We don't say, oh God, you'd be like, oh, how was work this week? Ah, it was grand. But, you know, if you're like, how's work this week? Oh, do you know what? I had a pretty shit week. This
Mm.
project is running behind and I'm not sure what to do. We don't talk like that. You know, you talk like that while you're in work, but you don't talk about it outside of it. And I think because sometimes you bring that work element home as well. If you're under pressure at work, you know, you're thinking and you're zoned out, and you might be lying awake at night thinking, Jesus, this thing is due to, I've got to solve this thing tomorrow, and what am I going to do? But you're thinking about it in here. You're not looking for external advice like women do with each other.
Yeah. In terms of habits, so you mentioned that in the morning you tend to listen to positive affirmation. Is there any other daily custom that you would like to share with others that maybe we can benefit from?
Um, I still have a wee chat with myself I still have a wee chat with myself in the mirror when I'm getting brush my teeth and that, and saying, today's going to be okay. You're going to have a good day
Mm.
today. You know, nothing. Whatever happens, we'll sort it out. We'll deal with it. And it's just kind of trying to start the day in a positive light. Instead of waking up in the morning thinking, "Oh God,
Mm.
what am I going to do?"
Mm.
It's thinking, how am I going to own this day? How am I going to succeed today, instead of waking up and being afraid? And um, there's a great quote I heard, and it's feel the fear and do it anyway.
Mm.
So whatever's going to happen today is going to happen regardless of how I feel about it right now. So just go with it, roll with it. If a problem comes up, we'll try and solve it. If we can't solve it, at least we've tried. But if it's a work problem, let's sort it at work. Let's bring in whoever we need to bring in to solve this. Let's not try and do it on our own. If you need external help, you know, put it to your boss, or put it to your colleagues and say, right, listen, can we get around the table here for 15 minutes, and let's work this out.
Yeah, because there's one thing you don't want to do is bring your work problems home.
No.
And worse than that is bringing your work problems to your bedroom, that you try to sleep and you cannot, or maybe you are able to fall asleep, but you will wake up every hour or every 2 hours thinking about that problem that is not solved, and you don't know how to
Don't know how to
how to
fix it.
set it aside
Mhm.
because it's bigger than you think. It's like a monster. It's like a monster that is just multiplying in multiple heads, and you don't know which way to start, because it's no longer a monster. It's like a dragon. Like you
Mhm.
don't know how to approach it, because it has a size that you never saw. It breathes in a way that is scary. It's not something that you face, so you don't know where to start. And the only thing you can think of is putting your head on the pillow and don't look at it. But it's not going to work, because that dragon is going to come back, and maybe it's going to be even
Even bigger.
stronger than you
Mhm.
than you think. And then what to do? And another thing that I think is quite tricky when it comes to sleep is, let's say, on a day-to-day basis we are awake, so we can challenge our thoughts, we can push
Mhm.
back on negative perspectives. But when you are asleep, then you are fragile, because we are fully exposed to all the demons, and that's something that people are not really aware of. It's a very a specific situation when it's not necessarily up to you, but more about what you did during the day, because whatever shit you went through from the moment you woke up until you go to bed is gonna haunt you.
Yeah.
There's no way around. So I think the best way, this that's how I realize that I can have a peaceful night, is if I go to bed, and before I fall asleep, I think about at least two positive things that I think I'll be able to encounter the day after. And then those monsters, they'll be thinking, I'm not going to approach that man, because he is in shape, so there is not much room for entertainment for us, because he knows what to do himself. And typically it works.
Yeah. I I tend to journal as well. Later, I find journaling in the evening really helps. So I'll jot, I'll take myself 10 minutes in the evening and take out the journal and just write about the day. And I'll also kind of, look ahead to tomorrow as well and see, right, what do I need to get done tomorrow? And if you write it down, then it's on the page and it's not rattling around in here.
Yeah.
So you'll know when you get up in the morning, you know what's there. I've written it down, I know what I've got to do in the morning, and at least you're not trying to remember it here, during in the middle of the night. And it's like it's on the page. That's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, I'm gonna get my rest.
Yeah. It's all about taking those dark elements from your head. That's absolutely crucial. If you can clean up your mind, you are well ahead in the game, to enjoy
Absolutely.
next day, to have positive interactions. And then I think the more exposed you are to um, good situations, the better you're going to feel about yourself, and that is reflected in your encounters with others. And it's all like a, how do you call it, a snowball. No,
Yeah,
it accumulates, and the other way around. So you better focus on things that will serve you and will serve others, because if you can share that positive emotion with others, it's going to be almost like a festival. And of course life won't be a festival all the time, but at least there'll be enough times to celebrate and share. And we all need that space where we can all fit and be happy to be together.
absolutely.
So Sean, I think I'm gonna come to a closure here. I want to thank you for being open. I think you demonstrated a huge courage to share your story. I was deeply moved and touched by what you went through. I'm glad you are in a way better situation now. It seems to be like night and day, and I think your advice would be of extremely help for people who are trying to navigate in their lives and they don't find a way forward. So massive gratitude for you being open tonight, Sean. So I want to thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks
For,
very much for having me on, Victor. And this, if this can help any of your listeners, we've done our job. We can take a lot of good good vibes out of that, a lot of positivity out of that. If that helps one person open up, helps one person go to their, go to their spouse, go to their girlfriend, go to their parents, go to their siblings and say, you know what, I'm not feeling okay, then this, this podcast has been completely worth it if it helps even one person. So thanks very much for doing what you're doing too.
cool. So that was Sean's story. I would say it was honest, raw, and a reminder that the rebuilding starts with a single conversation. If this episode resonated with you, please hit the like button below. If you haven't subscribed, it would be great. It would be great if you can. We are now more than 1,000, but we want to keep growing. So, if you want to share it with someone who may need to hear what we discussed tonight, don't hesitate. No, I think people need to listen to this sort of open chats, and there are not many. So we'll try to expand as much as you can, and we count on your collaboration. If you would like to support men's mental health like Movember, you can donate at my campaign. There's a link in the description. And there is also QR that I hope is working, because last time it was not. So I tested. I hope this time in live is working. If it's not working, forgive me and just use the link in the description. Movember chats. There will be 3 more this month. Next one is next Monday, so in a week time. And then we have another scheduled for Sunday, the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, the 23rd. And the final when I have a bigger mustache on the 30th of November. So that will be a closure session. Yeah, so thanks for listening. And remember, talking saves lives. And yeah, now to talk about football, first we have League of Ireland review and dreadful final FA Cup final as well. We'll discuss those two, but let's not think of negative things as a Cork City fan before going to bed. So let's keep other things in mind now. Good, Sean. Have a good evening and keep in touch. Take care.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Vitor.